Hello, my lovely YouTubers! So in this video, we are going to be talking about Catasetum culture, specific towards the watering and repotting needs of Catasetum. I have been getting a lot of messages from you guys, and a lot of them are asking about when do I repot my Catasetum, when do I water my Catasetum, so I figured I would just show you guys where my catasetums are at and sort of where my mindset goes whenever I look at my plants and decide which ones get watered and which ones don't get watered. Not all catasetums grow at the same rate. They don't come out of dormancy at the same time. They don't all grow 2 pseudobulbs or 3 pseudobulbs. There are a myriad of different factors that affect when a catasetum will come out of dormancy, when they'll go into dormancy, when they'll set flower spikes. There's just all sorts of different factors, and you have to be able to sort of read your orchid to understand the signals that your orchid is giving you. So here in front of me, I have 3 of the most common things you'll see from your catasetum when it is coming out of dormancy. And these are all catasetums here in front of me that have given sort of mixed signals. Now, if you're a new catasetum grower, it can be pretty confusing as to what you should do with these signals that your orchid is giving you. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be referring to all of these guys as catasetum, but I do have some cycnoches and mormoses and clowicea mixed in here, but for ease of language, I'm just going to be referring to them all as catasetum. So this one here is a Fred Clark area. It is a man-made hybrid made by Fred Clark of Sunset Valley Orchids there. And your man-made hybrids definitely don't behave like your primary hybrids or your species Catasetum. They sort of run on their own schedule and just do whatever they want to do. Now, what I mean by that is, look at this orchid. It has its leaves still, although this one is just starting to yellow right here. It's had these leaves for a while now, and it's coming out of dormancy, so it's pretty confusing, especially for new growers. Do I water this orchid or do I not water this orchid? Now, for this one in particular, I look at the new growths. If the new growths have roots that are 3 inches in length, so if we look at the roots down there, if we were to cut them off and line them up in a row, they would probably equal about 3 inches in length. Next thing we look at is the pseudobulb itself. Is it beginning to leaf out? And when I mean leaf out, I mean does it have the leaves that are spreading open? This one is at that stage where it's just beginning to leaf out. You can see the little opening right there. The roots are definitely substantial enough to take a little bit of water. And the last thing I'll look at is the pseudobulbs. Are the pseudobulbs super shriveled or are they pretty plump? If your pseudobulbs are pretty shriveled, you're definitely going to want to spray some water around the rim of the pot. Don't get the roots wet. It's okay if you get them a little bit wet, but you're really going to want to direct the water to around the rim of the pot just to sort of give a little bit of added humidity to plump up those pseudobulbs. I will begin to water this orchid once this new growth here gets a little bit bigger, but for now, I'm just barely even misting around the rim of the pot. Okay, so next one is a catasetum that is still completely dormant. I've gotten some questions. How do I get my catasetum to come out of dormancy? And really, I don't have a good answer for you. If you give your catasetum warm temperatures and you put it in a bright location, not direct sunlight, but a bright location, then you just have to wait, be patient, and eventually the catasetum will come out of dormancy if all other culture needs are met. For example, if you're looking at it and it's shriveled or mushy, it's probably not going to come out of dormancy, it's probably dead. But as you can see, this pseudobulb here is nice and fat, so I just have to be patient and wait for it to come out of dormancy. Next thing you might run into is a pseudobulb that is leafing out. This is a really good example of one that's leafing out. You can see the leaves clearly, they're much more defined. It looks like it should be watered. But if we take a look at the base of the pseudobulb, there aren't any roots. So without any roots, there is no need to water this orchid. Just be patient and wait for those roots to show up. Remember, we're looking for at least 3 inches worth of root growth. It could be a one root that is 3 inches long or 3 1-inch roots. Yeah, I said that right. Confusing myself here. So yeah, you're just basically wanting roots that are 3 inches total in length. So another question I get asked pretty frequently is, when do I repot my catasetum? You're going to want to repot your catasetum whenever it's coming out of dormancy. If your catasetum looks like this, it is not a good candidate for repotting. I actually already repotted this one, thank goodness, but if your catasetum looks like this, it is not a good candidate for repotting, because look at all of the new roots in there. We don't want to disturb those new roots. We definitely don't want to harm those new roots, because the catasetum is coming out of dormancy. It spent all of that time and energy creating these new growths, and to repot this orchid would be unsafe and would most likely result in damage of the roots. So we're looking for new growth, just a tiny little sign of life before we repot our Catasetum orchids. This right here is one of my Catasetum seedlings, and you can see the little green growth there at the base. So this one right here is a perfect candidate for repotting. So this growth is pretty interesting because it is growing above the media. So it is a prime candidate for repotting. You just have to be very, very careful when doing so. I'm probably not going to repot this orchid because I'm very, very clumsy, and I'm also feeling very lazy. I don't really feel like repotting it, so I'm just going to let this one grow. I'll probably add some sphagnum moss because it is pretty far above the media there. Is that the ice cream man? Oh my gosh. Resist the urge to buy ice cream. Ice cream. It's like 60 degrees. Why is the ice cream man driving around? Wow, he must be really close. I can't focus on Catasetums with the ice cream man. Ice cream. So delicious and creamy. Okay, good. He's driving away. I hear him fainting into the distance. Okay, so now I'm just going to randomly pick a few Catasetum and basically just show you whether I would re-water it or not. I get a lot of questions on how big should my Catasetum new growth get before I water it. And like I said, you want to wait until the roots are at least 3 inches total in length. And you also would ideally like to wait until the new growth begins to leaf out. So this is another example of leafing out, and that right there is an example of one that is not yet leafed out. All right, so let's do our first test here. Are the roots 3 inches in length? Well, it does appear, though, that the roots, if we were to cut them off, lay them straight and measure them, they'd be about 3 inches in length, maybe a little bit under. So I'm going to look at the leaves. It is beginning to leaf out. Lastly, I look at the pseudobulbs. Are they shriveled? This back one is pretty shriveled. This newest one, though, is pretty plump. So I'm pretty much going to hold off on this one on watering. With something like this so close to 3 inches or under 3 inches, I just don't feel comfortable, and it's not worth risking the plant to give it some water. Okay, next one we'll look at. Let's look at the roots. Probably not 3 inches in length. Is the growth leafing out? Doesn't really look so. Is the pseudobulbs on the plant shriveling? Well, this back one is shriveling, but the newest one is pretty plump, so this one is going to be a no water. All right, let's look at this one. Are the roots at least 3 inches in length? I would say so. Look at all of those roots. It has this growth behind here as well. And even little side growths. If you guys see those side pseudobulbs coming off the immature pseudobulbs. This one has a ton of growth going on. Let's look at the new growths. Are they leafing out? Yes. Yes, they are. And let's look at the older pseudobulbs. Are they shriveling? Nope, not really. These guys look really, really good. So this one is a prime candidate for watering. Now, when watering your Catasetum orchid, it is important not to give a whole bunch of water all at once. You want to gradually introduce water, gradually introduce fertilizer, and gradually introduce the amount of sunlight this plant will be receiving. So to introduce my Catasetums to moisture, I just take a pump sprayer and I will spray at the base of the roots on the sphagnum moss, not directly onto the roots. I spray at the base of the roots here, and just wait until the sphagnum moss is moistened. I don't completely saturate the sphagnum, I just moisten the media until it's not crunchy anymore. Now, to introduce my Catasetums to fertilizer, I actually have already started fertilizing these guys. I use my fish emulsion and seaweed fertilizer in a diluted form, so about 1 teaspoon per container of water. So looking at my pump sprayer here, it is 1500 milliliters, so I use 1 teaspoon per 1500 milliliters of water. Okay guys, so we have talked about the watering needs of our Catasetums coming out of dormancy, and we've talked about the repotting needs of our Catasetums coming out of dormancy. If you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to leave a comment or question down in the comment section of this video. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter and post your questions there. Facebook is really great because you can post a picture. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So for those of you asking me Catasetum questions, if you want really in-depth, detailed answers, it's really best to leave a picture on my Facebook page, and that way I can see sort of what I'm looking at, get a better idea of how to help you. Also subscribe to this channel for more videos like this one in the future, and until next time, I will see you guys later.